Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another wonderful episode of the Duck Zone. And we are cruising through the NFL season, the college football season. We are already on week 3 of the pro side and week 4 of the college side. A lot of surprises this weekend, so we're just going to go right on into it. We're going to do our reactions. We're going to give you some picks. After a really hot week 1 for the both of us, we both definitely cooled off. I was under 500. James, I think you were right around 500. But we'll start with you. What was your reactions to week 2 of the NFL season?
Well, we definitely got off to kind of a somber moment, I think, on Thursday night, watching the whole Tua get another concussion. So that's never fun. Um, so I guess I'll kind of pose a question to you and we can go a little back and forth. But he just got put on IR today. Should he retire?
I mean, the conversation has definitely started at this point. It was talked about last year or the year before. I can't remember. I mean, he's suffered so many concussions now, so many different injuries. I think the next 4 weeks are vital. I wouldn't be surprised if we've seen the last of Tua. There may be hope, and there may be a sense of like, all right, let's hope this happens. I wouldn't be surprised that the Dolphins draft. I know this is way looking ahead. I bet you the Dolphins draft the quarterback high up next year because if this isn't it, we're close. He can't take too many more hits. Um, this might be the end. I think it's a 50-50, but it really depends on how he feels here over the next few months, next few weeks. But I would say 50-50. We may have seen the last of him. If he comes back out, I think it's one more hit and it could be done.
Yeah, I mean, I think I looked it up the other day. I think it's like his fourth concussion total, third since entering the NFL. It's not good. Kind of ironic that Damar Hamlin put the hit on him,
Yeah.
and honestly, it wasn't even that big of a hit. How do I say this in the nicest way possible? Or I guess Tua kind of caused that himself by lowering his head. So obviously in the moment, I'm not a quarterback by any means. I've never played organized football other than flag football. So can't say I would can blame the guy for what he did. I don't know, whatever. It happened. But yeah, the question is definitely there. So that kind of sucked to start out, week 3 on that note. Some other notes I put down, I'll just run through them real fast and feel free to chime in. Are the Ravens the best 0-2 team? That's something I can't quite figure out. To me, I think they are because they have a very talented roster. Like, positive regression has to be coming for them.
Yeah,
Sam
something with.
Darnold.
Oh, I was going to kind of add
Oh,
something
go
to it.
ahead.
There's something with Baltimore that's really interesting because I'm going to talk about this when we talk about the game against Dallas, that's a hard game because it's in Dallas. It's hard to see Baltimore going 0-3. But one thing that is fascinating because I kind of watched some of the breakdown of the film of that game yesterday, and it is fascinating to watch that the offensive coordinator, which I think came from Georgia, this is his second year at Baltimore now, for whatever reason, they can't figure it out. And for whatever reason, every offensive coordinator, and sure, some of them, Roman was not great. I was not a big fan of Roman when he was there in Baltimore. But Lamar Jackson, for some reason, has not, with as much talent they've had, as an explosive a guy he is, for some reason, their offense is very predictable. And some of the things that I saw against the Raiders, it was wild. They knew exactly when Derrick Henry was getting the ball, so it's almost there's no threat of a when Derrick Henry is in the game, they're gonna run, and it's gonna be interesting to see if they can figure that out. I mean, it's crazy to watch. They see Derrick Henry come in and they stack the box with 8 guys, and they just bring them all and there's no audible. There's no. It's just a very predictable offense right now. Um, that's got a lot of talent. So they got to figure it out. They got a lot of talent. It's a very talented 0-2 team. The Raiders are, in my opinion, not a great football team, and losing at home, that's a tough one. In that division, like things can spiral pretty quick if they don't figure it out real fast.
Yeah, they need to start figuring out what to do with Derrick Henry because, like you said, he comes in and he's getting the ball. They need to like swing him out. I know his hands aren't like fantastic, but at least show the defense that something else could potentially happen. Anytime Justice Hill's in, you know it's a pass block or he's
Yeah,
going out for to catch the ball. And yeah, and we'll discuss that a little more when we talk about our picks.
yeah,
Other notes I put down: Sam Darnold is proving everyone wrong.
yeah.
I don't think anyone really saw the Vikings being 2-0 or even this this good on offense. He's so far. I know it's week 2. We don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but at least trends are starting to form. But he's looking like a first round pick when he was drafted however many years ago. Obviously, it helps that he's had probably his best receiving core ever. Um, Baker Mayfield definitely, I think, was supposed to be a number one overall pick. He's gone from a decent rookie season to kind of falling out to becoming like, okay, maybe he's a decent game manager and definitely a starting quarterback, but now it's like, oh wow, he's a gunslinger. Like he can lead an offense.
Yeah,
The Saints are the real deal.
I kind of say something real quick because both those comments kind of have something that I want to harp on real quick. It's the fact that some of these quarterbacks need more than 2 seasons to develop. There's going to be struggles, those first 3 years especially. It just shows you how bad some of these teams are just cutting guys loose. Baker's a good athlete. Like we knew he could throw the ball, but there was just a quick, all right, we're done with you and gone. Sam Darnold was a horrific situation, and then just got passed around the last few years. And then Kevin O'Connell's just a great quarterback to have, a great coach to have a quarterback. So I think he's getting aided there quite a bit. But with the storyline, you might be bringing this up. Bryce Young has now been cut. He's played 18 games. He's looked awful. Don't get me wrong. He's looked awful. But 18 games is real fast just to say you're done.
Well, and a lot of these guys too, it's like if you're the number one pick or a top 5 pick as a quarterback, you're getting put into a terrible situation, obviously, because the prior year your team did absolutely nothing. And not saying that some of these teams don't have good players, or I guess for quarterbacks, the biggest thing would be a competent O line, a decent tight end for maybe a check down, since tight ends we thought were maybe starting to come around, which I still think they are. I think there's a lot of good tight ends in the league. We just haven't quite seen them. In week 2, I think the tight end play picked up a little more, and then obviously outside and slot receivers to catch the actual ball. But yeah, it's not everyone gets a Caleb Williams situation where you get an insane amount of talent your rookie year.
Yeah.
Granted, he hasn't quite used it yet.
But
Um,
adding on to that, everyone's trying to
yeah,
find the next Patrick Mahomes, and that's what everyone's gutting for. But everyone forgets that Patrick Mahomes was drafted into a situation with Andy Reid, who is a Hall of Fame coach, a team that allowed him to not play his whole rookie season. But even when he was drafted, a Chiefs team that was already making the playoffs, and Alex Smith quarterback that his first year played the whole year, and they went to the playoffs. They were very good, and he inherited this crazy talented team. People are just like, Patrick Mahomes is a god. Yeah, he's very good. He's one of the best of all time. But he inherited a situation that was really nice.
well, and he was drafted what,
10.
middle of the first round? I want to say like,
Well, he was drafted
yeah,
in 10.
okay,
Yeah,
10th, yeah.
yeah,
So he far enough down to where you're. I mean, that's not great. You're definitely lower half of the league, but like you said, yeah, he got a
because
good
they
situation.
because they traded up for that spot. They were a playoff team, so they were later in the draft, and they moved up to 10. But
Right.
but
Oh
still,
yeah, yeah. You're right.
but it's like one of those things where it's like, not all these guys are gonna. I mean, Carolina is a bad situation. It is still not a good situation.
Yeah,
So, um,
yeah. They not a lot going for them. They still have a lot of draft pieces, not only from this past year, but obviously in future years that they're going to need to really improve this team. And I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a Panthers fan this past weekend, and he was saying that he doesn't think that the Panthers are going to be remotely close to even being able to manage any type of winning season as long as David Tepper is
yeah,
in charge. So
it's
interesting
gonna
note.
it's gonna be a while. It's gonna be a while.
So actually, this is a good point. Speaking of Patrick Mahomes, I think the Chiefs chiefed real hard, and it's getting to a point where they always find a way. Like it's absolutely insane how many of these situations have happened in Mahomes' career in Kansas City. They're down two and they need a field goal to win it, or they need this to happen. And it happened, and I don't know if it's luck. I don't know. I'm not saying it's rigged. Not by no means am I saying it's rigged, but it's getting to the point where the Chiefs are chiefing so much. Like everything just seems to be going their way, and we saw that again this Sunday.
It feels like we're rewriting history in the aspect of remember it was like the '06. It's probably earlier than that. It's like the '02 through man 2019 Patriots. Brady just found a way to win. I mean, they did things.
Every
We're
time.
doing. It's the same thing where you know Patriots would be down by 4, and there would be 23 seconds left, and they'd have one timeout, and they just got the ball back, and somehow Tom Brady will complete 2 passes for 25 yards, and you're like, how the hell did this happen? And then, of course, someone's flashing across the middle for a touchdown to win it with no time. It's just like and
Yeah, I think we're seeing.
the Chiefs are doing the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing that's happened the last 4 or 5 years. It's the same script, and it's like, yeah, it's the same. We're watching history repeat itself, just with a different. Instead of the Patriots, it's now the
And
Chiefs.
yeah, it might last for a while, especially with Mahomes only being, 27, 28 years old. I mean, I know Randy Reid probably won't be around, but depending if they promote Spagnola or bring in someone new, I mean, at least you have to, it's a quarterback driven league, and with Mahomes and helm, you're on the right track.
Yeah.
Let's see, what other notes do I have? The Steelers' defense is legit.
Yep.
And I know we've talked about it, but I think that's one of the main reasons why they're 2-0. I mean, Justin Fields has been okay. He hasn't been bad. He hasn't been great. His mobility definitely helps, and he's extended a lot of plays. He's not dominating by any means like some of the numbers he was putting up in Chicago, but he's been fine. The Cardinals, I think, might be ahead of schedule.
Mm.
They absolutely pulverized the Rams, and we got to finally see that Kyler Marvin Harrison connection that I think everyone in Arizona has been waiting for. So I think a week 3. Who are they playing? The Lions. If
Detroit.
that
Detroit
it's not
at
going to
home.
happen again. He's not going to Detroit. Yeah, so he's not going to go off for 140 plus yards or whatever he had in 2 touchdowns, but maybe like pepper him a little more for the reception uptick and get around that 75 to 90 yard mark and maybe a score would be a good way to show the fans that it needs to be consistency matters, and obviously week 1 there was zero consistency.
Yep.
And last but not least, last night's Monday night game, that was the worst Eagles defense. Not Eagles defense, but the worst defense from the Eagles I've ever seen in the last minute and a half of a game. It's like they were playing prevent with 10 seconds left, trying to not allow a Hail Mary. But there was a minute 40 left when the Falcons took over, and they just let them get right down the field and score like it was nothing. It was unbelievable, and that was an incredibly terrible final drive defense. Like one of the worst I've ever seen watching. I was like, oh my god. I mean, I know Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback, and he also, like we've talked before in previous episodes, Atlanta has some pretty good um, pieces, and Kyle Pitts and Drake London and Bijan. But oh my God, that was so bad.
Yeah.
So, anyways, those are my notes. Anything you want to add on to that NFL reaction
Yeah,
wise?
yeah, really fast. I mean, the biggest thing I took away from week two is the NFL is really hard. You can't just walk into a building and expect to win. You're going to get crushed. We saw that with Dallas. They got annihilated to New Orleans. We kind of saw that a little bit with Philly with their defense and trying to go for on fourth downs in stupid situations. This is not the same Philly team that we've seen the last 2 years. This is not as good of a Philly team. There are a lot of these guys that we're hoping that they're going to emerge into stars right away. We got kind of the CJ Stroud effect going on. Some of these rookies are going to take some time. Some of these teams, some of these quarterbacks may never get there, and we're kind of already seeing it. Bryce Young's already benched. Will Levis probably not too far behind. There's been a lot of hype under Anthony Richardson that is purely him being an athlete. Everyone kind of forgets the fact that the year that Anthony Richardson got drafted, to begin the year, he was not supposed to be a top 5 round pick. I mean, he was like borderline on the draft board, and he made his way go all the way to 4 while producing a 6-6 record at Florida. I mean, it's not like this guy was Joe Burrow and came out of nowhere and just kind of blew the world on fire. He didn't do that at all. He got drafted because he was an athlete, and you got an athlete now running the helms in Indianapolis. And sure, he can throw the hell out of the ball, but there's a lot of things that are getting missed there. Guys are definitely overpaid. Daniel Jones is bad. Trevor Lawrence is not looking too good. You got teams though that are kind of like, wow, this team looks good. Can they hold this up? And I heard a crazy stat. New Orleans has had 15 drives this season. They've scored on all 15. That's weird. I
Holy
mean,
shit.
I mean, it's just like when's that gonna stop? Tampa Bay's looked really good. I think there's a couple teams that I mean, one of the biggest ones. What we kind of just talked about. What happens with Miami now? Miami, how far does this tumble? I mean, this could get real ugly real quick. How do they recover? Do they go get one of these quarterbacks in these upcoming weeks? Because there's a lot of guys that are, they're sitting there. Do they go get a Mac Jones? Do they go get some of these guys that have lost their jobs and just kind of just start trading
Tannehill.
for them? Tannehill, yeah, a couple of these guys, they start bringing them in, be like, they see what's happened with Sam Darnold. They've seen what's happened with Baker. They've gotten a second chance, and it's emerged well. They kind of open up the quarterback room here in a week or two, and they say, all right, we just got to bring in whoever. Malik Willis is another example of that. Going into Tennessee this week, he's leading Green Bay. Let's see how far that goes. Sometimes a fresh of air is a big thing, but the biggest thing is the NFL is really hard, and winning week to week is really difficult. And you can't just waltz into any game thinking, "Oh, we're going to win," because more than likely you're going to get crushed if you think that way. And we saw the Rams get annihilated,
Yeah.
so that's another one where I
Yeah. The
think they kind of
parody.
walked. I think they walked into Arizona knowing it was an in division game, but they're like, "Oh, we played Detroit really well. We're going to beat this team. They looked really bad." The game was over at halftime. So
Yeah. The parody in the NFL is crazy. I mean,
yeah,
it's not like college where sometimes you have a little slip up in college, but then you can come back and just dominate because you're a Power Five team. Or look at Notre Dame. I know we'll talk about them later, but they absolutely destroyed Purdue.
yeah,
And week to week in college is like a crapshoot, whereas the NFL, for the most part, you kind of know what you're getting, but also don't take teams lightly because I think most spreads in the NFL are within probably 7 points to a
yeah.
field
They're
goal.
all pretty much within a
And
score. You see a
even
double digit
yeah,
thing. It's weird. Yeah.
yeah,
All right. Well, do you want to jump? Should we jump into these matchups and kind of rapid fire them for a second here?
let's do it.
All right, let's do it. We're going to start with the Thursday night game. New England's going to be traveling to the Jets.
Jets impressed me. I think Aaron Rodgers is better than Jacoby Brissett. and Brees Hall and now Braylon Allen seem like a pretty good duo. So I got the Jets at home
I've
winning.
got the Jets as well. I've been impressed with New England up to this point. Um, the Giants heading to Cleveland.
Deshaun looked a little better. I think there's more pieces on the Browns. They have a better defense. I got the Browns.
I got the Browns as well. It's hard to take the Giants, especially on the road. Green Bay visiting Tennessee. As I said, Malik Willis probably going to be playing here, going back to his old team.
Give me the Packers receiving core helping out Malik Willis. Titans have shown me nothing. Turnover prone Will Levis will probably throw another pick, maybe fumble it again. So I got Packers on the road.
I got the Packers as well. Two young quarterbacks in this next one. We got the Chicago Bears going to Indianapolis.
I had no idea what to do with this one. I like the Colts at home. I think Richardson bounces back. He had a pretty bad week too, so give me the Colts at home.
Yeah, I'm also taking the Colts. It's wild to say this because this is Richardson's like fifth game at the NFL, so this is not fair to say at all. He's technically still his rookie year, but he's got to show something. I mean, he has to outduel Caleb Williams in this one. Caleb Williams has got a long leash, in my opinion, but Anthony Richardson has looked real bad with a lot. That whole offense has looked real bad with a lot of offense. But I take the Colts in this when they get their first victory. We got Houston taking on or heading to Minnesota. Both teams 2-0 in this one.
Yeah, this could be a pretty fun matchup. Like you said, both 2-0 teams. Unfortunately, I think that two-game winning streak ends for the Vikings. Give me the Texans on the road, and I think we might be starting to see one of the best wide receiver quarterback duos in Stroud and Nico Collins.
Yeah, I think Houston wins here. I think that team's got a lot of talent. Um, Houston might be the only team that has the firepower to outduel Kansas City at this point in the AFC. Um, Philadelphia heading to New Orleans. Two teams drastically going in different directions after that week, too.
I like the Saints at home. Kamara looked like he had a fire in his belly. Derek Carr is playing out of his mind, and like you said, Eagles are kind of on the downturn. They've got a lot to prove, so I like the Saints at home.
I'm going to take the Saints as well. I'm going to ride that hand as long as I possibly can. LA Chargers taking on or heading to Pittsburgh. As you said, Fields more than likely starting in this one. Yeah, let's see what you say about this one.
I'd love to know what the over/under is in this game, and I would maybe bet the under. This might be like kind of an ugly game, but I like the Steelers' defense more than the Chargers' offense. And yeah, give me the Steelers at home.
Over under for this game. Wait, sorry, who'd you think?
Steelers.
You took a picture. Okay. Over under is 35.5, lowest of the week. Um, I'm actually going to take the Chargers. I'll probably take the under. I think this is going to be ugly. Two teams trying to dominate the ball. I expect this game to be won in the trenches. I see a hardball type game. I'll take the Chargers in this one. I think Fields finally makes that mistake, and it costs Pittsburgh to lose the game. Um, Denver, who just has not looked good offensively at all, going to Tampa Bay.
This one's pretty easy, and if I'm wrong, so be it. Bucks at home.
Yeah, Bucks win this one. I'd be surprised if it goes any other way. Carolina and now Andy Dalton going to Las Vegas to take the Raiders.
I like the Raiders at home. I think they looked a little wonky week one, but they obviously got a big time win at Baltimore week two. I think the home crowd will be fired up. They don't look terrible. But also the Panthers, I'm interested to see. Maybe they'll be a little fired up now that they have a new quarterback in Andy Dalton. But we haven't seen Andy Dalton, so I don't know what to go off of. So I'm going to say Raiders at home.
Yeah, I'll take the Raiders as well in that game. After we got 5 games in the afternoon, that starts the afternoon slate. That's gonna be good. Miami now with Skylar Thompson playing quarterback, going to be heading to Seattle. That's a long road trip after that disastrous Thursday night.
I like the Seahawks at home. Again, I just Skylar Thompson's in the helm. I know he's got Tyreek and Waddle to throw to, but I imagine they'll probably run the ball a lot, depending if Mostert's back and healthy. Definitely a chain. So I just think the Seahawks defense is going to be keying in on that. I like the Seahawks at home.
I got the Seahawks at home as well. Um, what I'm deeming crazily probably the game of the week. Baltimore heading to Dallas. I think whoever loses this game starts hitting the panic button real early. But who do you got in this Baltimore Dallas game?
So Dak hasn't really shown me much quite yet. He was a little better last week, not quite there. I like the Ravens just because I think they have to win. They can't go 0-3. So I think the Ravens are going to be pressing hard to get this victory, and I think they get it done. So Ravens on the road.
I've got Dallas here. I'm gonna just say they have to look better than they did last week, and it's an interesting situation because you got a Dallas team that really struggles against the run and really struggles against hard nosed football and has for a few years now. Going up against a Baltimore team that is basically telling the defense we're running the ball, so something's got to give there. And I'll take Dallas. I think it's gonna be high scoring. I don't know. I just feel like Dallas might win this, and just I can't see them. I can't see them dropping another one at home. Baltimore starts 0-3, but I think at this point things turn around, and we may get like the first team to ever get to the playoffs off an 0-3 start, which I think is a thing. I don't think anyone's ever gotten the playoffs off an 0-3 start. Interesting game here. San Francisco heading to LA. The Rams. Who you got?
Yeah, this is like the battle of attrition. It's who can you really put on the field. No CMC, no Debo. For the Rams, you have basically the top two receivers, and Cup and Nakua are out. I just like the Niners. I think they have a better defense, and they still have a couple playmakers in Kittle and Ayuk. And Jordan Mason's been solid, so I like the 49ers on the road.
Yeah, I'm taking the Niners as well. I think the Rams actually might be really, really injury ridden. We're starting to see, even though it's one guy, he was very explosive. We're seeing the absence of Aaron Donald already in that Rams defense. He did a lot, and that's why he was one of the best player in the NFL on the defensive side of the ball for so many years. Um, the Rams, with all these injuries, it's weird to say this, they might be bad, and they may be one of the worst teams in the NFC if they don't get healthy quick. Um, Detroit heading to Arizona.
The jury's still out for the Cardinals, unfortunately. They had a hell of a week too, but like you said, maybe this Rams team is really bad. Not to say what the Cardinals did wasn't great. That offense was clicking. Kyler was insane. Unfortunately, I just think the Lions are the better team, and I think they come in after losing week 2 and get back on track and win by a nose hair in Arizona.
I expect this to be kind of what we expected with Arizona games at the beginning of the year. I expect this to be kind of a shootout. I think Detroit wins. I think where it's going to be something crazy like a 38-31 type game. Expect a lot of scoring going back and forth. I expect to see a few big plays. Harrison to score, upwards of a 40-yard touchdown. I can see uh, Williams on the other side, explosive runs. I can see it all in this one, but I'm going to say Detroit wins in a very exciting offensive showing from both sides. Sunday Night Football, Kansas City, which I think has pretty much gotten a primetime spot every single week so far. I guess we get used to that. Going up against Atlanta in Atlanta.
I like the Chiefs because, like I talked about earlier, the Chiefs are always chiefing. So this also could be a really fun game. I'm interested to see who plays running back. If Steele gets the workload, or if they kind of split it evenly among Steele and P Ryan, or even elevate Kareem Hunt got signed today to the practice squad. So we'll see if how quickly he can pick up the playbook and kind of get up to speed. But I've said this, I think, every week. I'm not betting against Mahomes. So, and until he proves me that he still can't do it, I like the Chiefs on the road.
So I'm actually going to take Atlanta, and the only reason why I'm taking Atlanta is this just feels like a weird trap game. It just feels like one of those. Kansas City always finds a way to just like lose one of these early on in the season to a team they shouldn't, and it's on the road. Atlanta's kind of riding high. What happened in Philadelphia? Pacheco's out. I think they were planning on using him a lot here in the early part of the season. They may have to wrinkle some things up. I just kind of have a feeling it's one of those weird trap games that we're just gonna kind of look back at the end of the season, just be like, how'd Kansas City lose that? Like, I think it'll be close. I think it's gonna be a little bit ugly, kind of like how we saw that Monday night game. I expect something weird, so I'm taking Atlanta just because I think it's a September game. It just feels like it's going to be a trap. So we got two Monday night football games this week. Jacksonville heading to Buffalo in the first one.
I like the Bills at home. Josh Allen's still elite, and he seems to be able to elevate players who aren't as great, especially with guys he's had prior in his receiving core. Uh, James Cook also looks to be pretty dang good. So I like the Bills at home.
I got the Bills as well. Nothing to add there. And in the last game, Washington taking on Cincinnati.
So the Bengals kind of fall into that. They're 0-2, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they are. I think this is a must win for Cincinnati. Joe Burrow was visibly frustrated in that Kansas City game this past week. He also is going to be pressing, and hopefully he gets T. Higgins back this week. We'll see. Jamar Chase at some point has to get it going, I would think. So give me the Bengals at home because once you're 0-2, you cannot afford to go 0-3. And it's not like the Commanders are great. Jaden Daniels has looked good, but I think the Bengals pull it out.
I think if I remember this stat, which is just a crazy stat, Joe Burrow in the first 2 weeks of each season he's played, he's 1-9. So they always start bad, and they always seem the way to turn it around. I'll take Cincinnati in this one. The worst seems to be those first 2 weeks for Cincinnati, and then they kind of get it clicking. So I see Cincinnati actually winning fairly easily in this one, taking out their frustrations at home.
And
Um,
no Sam Hubbard. He's been out for the first couple weeks.
and he does a lot. Shout out to Big Hoss. Uh, all right, let's move over to college football. Um, is there anything you want to talk about before we jump into our picks, and then we're going to kind of have our little predictions if the playoffs started now? You have any recap of college football, or not too much?
I don't have too much. I have a couple notes I wrote down. Honestly, I didn't. There weren't too many great games last week. It was kind of an off week personally. There were some good games, but going into the week, it wasn't like a stacked lineup. So some of the notes I wrote down. K State made a statement on Friday the 13th against the Wildcats. I don't even want to get into that. The Wildcats were unbelievably horrible, but also hats off to Kansas State. Georgia barely hung on to versus Kentucky. That was pretty crazy. I did not see that close of a game. But in college, a win's a win. That's not really going to affect Georgia, I don't think, and that might have just been a one-off. Nebraska's the real deal. Husker Nation, you guys might be back. Arch Manning is special. He might even be better than Quinn Ewers, which is crazy. But Texas is great, and it doesn't seem like it's going to matter who's at quarterback.
Yep.
Let's see, what else did I put down? Oregon finally found their wings. That was impressive and much needed, especially in a rivalry game in week 3, which is weird to say, the Civil War. Notre Dame bounced back huge. They might even be back in potentially to the 12-team playoff since their schedule is really not that difficult. And lastly, I put that game day was probably the game of the week. That LSU SC game, um, yeah, pretty much proved to be the game of the week. It was a 3-point win for LSU. And yeah, that was like one of the only games I remember significantly watching throughout the entire
Yep.
weekend. But those are my notes for week 3 college
Yeah,
football.
there's only two things I'm going to add is that's probably going to be the weakest weekend of college football we see the rest of the way. Everything else is probably going to be stacked, but that's probably the weakest week of the year. And the only other takeaway I got, which we'll talk about after our picks for this week, I got five SEC teams making the playoff at this point, and it's wild to say this. I don't think Georgia or Alabama is going to win the SEC, which has only happened one time in the last 10 years, and that was LSU in 2019. Um, I can't figure out. I really can't figure out who the best team in the SEC is because I'm pretty sure it's not Bama and it's not Georgia. Um, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Texas might honestly be the best three teams in football, and I can't figure out which one's the best. Um, but we can get to that in a second. Let's make some picks. We got some top 25 matchups, so let's make some picks and dissect some of these real quick. We'll start out on the Friday night. Number 24, Illinois going to Nebraska 22. You mentioned them; they look good. They've got a quarterback.
And that's why I have them winning. I think the raucous crowd in Lincoln will be ready to go. You said it. Nebraska's got a quarterback, Dylan Raiola. He's legit, and he definitely heightens, the receiving core for Nebraska. They also have a good running back. I can't think of his name, but their run game's not awful too. So, yeah, give me Nebraska.
Cool. I've got Nebraska as well. Number 11, heading to the Big House, taking on number 18, Michigan.
So this will be interesting because this is the first Big Ten game for USC. Matching up the quarterbacks, USC definitely has the better quarterback in Miller. Miller Moss, is that his name?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So give me USC on the road. I don't think Michigan has it this year.
Yep.
Um, they have players all around on offense and defense, but just like the NFL, I think it's a quarterback driven league unless you have like an elite running back. But I like USC on the road.
Yeah, this is kind of the beginning of these new matchups that we're going to see over time that are super exciting. Seeing USC go to the Big House is cool, and we're going to see a lot of these things. The matchup we're going to talk about in 2 minutes is Tennessee going to Oklahoma. Matchups that are these are dream college football matchups that are going to start happening every year, every other year. This is for me more about the fact of what Michigan hasn't shown this year. They've looked terrible on offense. And USC, I'm not going to say they're anywhere near as good as Texas, but they may roll into the Big House and do pretty similar things to what Texas did to Michigan. I think Texas is significantly better, but I kind of see USC rolling in and winning by a couple scores. And that's not as much to saying USC's great. I think they're very good. Um, but I think Michigan's just not it this year. They haven't figured it out on the offensive side of the ball. There's been too much changeover, in my opinion, and too much pressure coming off of a national championship. So USC for me. Another one of these new matchups, Big 12, number 12, Utah going to number 14, Oklahoma State.
I think Utah all around is just a very, very solid team. Cam Rising's healthy, and he's shown that he's a really good quarterback, even though he's in like year 5 or whatever. He's been around. He knows the offense. He knows the playbook. He can get it to the guys he needs to get it to. And I don't think Oklahoma State's defense is all that great. And if Oklahoma State can't run the ball, having arguably the best running back in all of college football, not quite sure what they are. But to me, Utah's got the better defense and the better quarterback, so I have Utah on the road.
I got Utah winning as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we see this game again in the Pac-12 and the Big 12 championship. Game of the week, college football college game day, heading to Oklahoma, Tennessee 6, going up against number 15 Oklahoma. Who do you got in this one?
I have Tennessee, and I have Tennessee by a lot. I know they're on the road. Oklahoma's in a weird. They're still in kind of a weird transitionary period. Like after Lincoln Riley left, their quarterback, obviously, as we know, went to Oregon. So this guy's like, this is start like 4 or 5 for him, and he looks okay. But I just don't think that this Oklahoma team is going to be able to stand up against Tennessee, who, like you've mentioned, are probably one of the top 3 teams in all of college. Tennessee's offense is unreal, and Tennessee's defense is unreal. So, yeah, I like Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm thinking Tennessee as well. I kind of had the quad box going on last week when they played Kent State. I thought it was a typo when I kind of passed by the screen and saw 37 to nothing at the beginning of the second quarter. I was like, what the hell happened? I mean, they legitimately, if they
Yes.
wanted to, they would have scored 100 points with ease. I know Kent State's bad, but scoring that many points in basically 15 minutes is insane. Um, so moving forward, if the playoff were to start tomorrow, who would be your 12 teams? Reminder: each of the major conferences gets their champion in, and then there's one from a mid-major conference. So you have the 5 basically that are solid in, and you have the 7 at large. Who would be your 12 at this point getting in? You can just kind of rapid fire them.
Yeah, I like Ohio State out of the Big Ten. I still like Georgia out of the SEC until they prove to me that they're not the best team in college football. And I know they're coming off a weird like 13-12 win over Kentucky. I just don't think that's who they are as a team. I don't want to say I'm hoping that's a I don't care about Georgia. If they lose, it doesn't matter to me. But that might just be a one-off. Like I mean, they didn't lose the game, but I could totally see it being like a Notre Dame situation where they come back next week and just pummel whoever they play.
Yep.
I like Miami still out of the ACC. I like K State out of the Big 12. I was really going back and forth between K State and Utah, but K State showed a lot to me in that Friday game against Arizona, who, yeah, Arizona's my team, but that's still a really good win, and they pounded what was supposed to be a good Arizona team. They made them look terrible.
Yeah.
And then my mid major, I couldn't make a pick per se, but I put down Memphis or NIU. NIU's got a big win under their belt, obviously winning at Notre Dame. They can win out. They might be a shoe in. Memphis also looks pretty solid, and then just being a mid major, they'd be able to get in. And then my at large teams in no specific order. Texas. I mean, Texas is gonna make it.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee's gonna make it. Oregon, Alabama, Ole Miss. Ole Miss looks really good. Jackson Dart is definitely going to be a Heisman favorite, or Heisman candidate, I should say, not favorite. And then I threw down USC and Missouri. I really wanted to throw Utah in there, but I just have a feeling that the Big 12 is going to beat up on each other. And, teams like USC, like maybe they'll value a win at the Big House a little more than, Utah winning at Baylor, or that actually didn't happen because Baylor played at Utah. But you know what I mean. Like it just seems like the SEC is going to be valued a lot. in the Big Ten is going to be valued a lot. So yeah, that's what I have
Yeah, we're
currently.
we're pretty similar. I'm going to just rapid fire through mine really quick. I've got Miami out of the ACC. The Big Ten, I've got three: Ohio State, Oregon, USC. Out of the SEC, I've got five: Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Texas. And then the Big 12, I've got two right now sitting with Utah and Kansas State. My last at large, the two teams that are on the bubble, Penn State, Oklahoma State, and then my mid major, I got three. UNLV's looked really good. They crushed Kansas. Um, Boise State, even though they lost to Oregon, they played them right to the wire. Now Oregon just killing Oregon State. That looks a little bit better. And Northern Illinois has got the best upset of the year. And if they go undefeated, they win out with that Notre Dame thing on their schedule, they're probably going to be the team. So those will be my three I got sitting at the top of the mid-major board. So,
I can't wait to see if how much that changes just next week. Like we see some weird upset or something crazy happens. Like, oh well, USC lost at Michigan, so boom, take them
it
out.
changes the
So
whole thing in a second. We saw with Notre Dame a week ago, lose to Northern Illinois, everyone's like, they're done, they're done. They killed Purdue, and all of a sudden it's like, they could go 11-1, and then you're in. This is just the feeling of you saw them lose to NIU was so bad. It's like, oh, this team's definitely going to lose a few more games, which, who knows, they might. But it's so hard to tell. You don't know where the ball's going to bounce. It's so unpredictable. Injuries, things like that. Really, the ball can jump anywhere. So, um, and we saw what happened with Georgia. I mean, they got out of that Kentucky game. Kentucky a week before looked awful, and going to that, Georgia squeaks out a win by one. So, and as you said, watch Georgia just electrocute whoever they play this week. Probably gonna happen. So, um, James, any last thoughts before we jump off?
wear my Diamondback shirt. We're getting into the heart of almost the heart of playoff season. We got a couple weeks left, so go Diamondbacks and go Otani. I want to see a 50-50 season.
Yeah, we're getting close. We got to start gearing up for Major League Baseball playoffs. We're just a few weeks away from that, and we're about a month away from the NBA season starting. We're kind of coming into that golden time of sports where every single major sport in this country is playing at the same time, which is exciting. So, all right. Well, I don't have anything more to add. Until next week, guys, thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you guys soon.